I alternately depressed and bored you last year by talking about my fear that this century was stuttering to start, that it reminded me of 100 years ago and of 200 years ago, when we required other global world wars before the 19th century and the 20th century could begin. And I said that the more that I traveled, the more fractious, the more separate we appeared, and the more afraid I became, waiting for that one moment that would start all that killing again. And ladies and gentlemen, because you are not children, so ladies and gentlemen, this year is not a good year, and our century still hasn't begun. But begin it will. But what do we need to make that beginning? You see, the world appears to get narrower. Our options close down. Brute force and violence replace offers of understanding and tolerance. Belief triumphs over reason, and cheap, base emotion is the evil overlord of the intellect. Belief will always triumph over reason because it can never be disproved. This generation, your generation, is already stained with blood. Your age group are the killers of Syria. The people your age are murdering people in Beirut, in Sharm el-Sheikh, and most immediately in our minds right now, those people who went to a pop concert in Paris on Saturday night, who tried to watch a football match, who went out with their girlfriends or their parents for a drink or a coffee. Right now, those people in their minds, because they were killed by people of your generation. Now, us old men, Professor Yunus and Kofi and myself, we too listen to old men speak to us that we were the glowing future. It's a cliche. You're the present. You are the present. Kofi and Mohammed and myself and the rest of us can't do much anymore. But the reason we speak to you is we are desperate for somebody to retract our failures. And that's why you're here. Stop with belief. Stop with emotion. The flags are cute, but nothing else. What's required of this unique conference, what is demanded by the old guys, thinking, and that's not enough. What is required, of course, is tolerance. What is required of a necessity is love and understanding. What is ultimately necessary to be understood is empathy. And you're failing. We just might be getting to that critical point of 100 and 200 years ago, of 1815 at the culmination of a vast, murderous global war, the Napoleonic Wars, or 1914, the birth of another completely unnecessary global confrontation that lasted for 75 years. That was our century. Your century hasn't begun, but we gave you the idea of this century. We gave you the mechanism, the technology of this century. If steam was the 19th century, and the internal combustion engine and the telephone was the 20th century, then the thing that Muhammad Yunus talked about, this technology we have, is the stuff of our century. And right now it's being used for triviality or seriousness in killing, but not seriousness in thought. And it is good that Kate and David decided to focus this uniquely on what might well destroy your generation and this world. Certainly it will destroy species that us old guys grew up with and amongst. Certainly. Certainly it might destroy some of those flags. So it's the right time for thinking, because the leaders, such as they are, will gather in Paris in a few weeks. Will it make much difference? I'm not sure. We have already sort of automatically accepted that the world will get 2% hotter, 2 degrees hotter than it is now. Why do we accept that? Because we've done nothing to abate the coming climate conflagration. I don't accept it, but there's not much I can do about it. What's required, as Kofi said, is certainly a carbon tax. What's required also is that states must subsidize technologies. It can't be left to the private sector. None of the great advances of our time or of the last 200 years have been left to private enterprise. They have nearly all been funded by the state. Again, this is where you can come in. It's simply not enough to write a letter to indifferent and deaf leaders in Paris. It's simply not enough to get on your magic machines and talk to each other about, yeah, we're the future, we demand. Nobody cares, dude. There needs to be concerted, coherent, cohesive, consensual political action. You need to return to your countries. You need to ask your governments to invest in research and development to stop what we've accepted is already here. Because if it doesn't, then the poor that Muhammad Yunus quite rightly talked about, the poor that he spent his life trying to pick up from the dirt and think instead of simply survive, to be human, they will die in their tens of millions because they will not be able to sustain their lives on the grounds upon which they walk. And in their panic to survive, they will strike out. And the wars of 100 and 200 years ago will be as nothing. So you're the serious generation. Forget the tweeting that's about bullshit. Tweet about serious. Go back to your countries. Get real with your governments. Get the people of your age group to understand precisely what happens. Stop with violence. It doesn't work. We've seen it time and again. We've seen the greatest of humans, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. In my own country of Ireland, the greatest of humans forswore violence, and they won. Not because they had some corny, cheap, emotional idea about, oh, we're all one, we all love each other. Because the truth is we don't. but we should. And now we've got the thinking planet here. Already a failure to your name, your killers, killing other people, innocents of your age group. Shame on you. Wipe out that shame. You've got time. Our time is up. You've got 3 days to work out in your own minds and together, not just what you'll do in these important, critical days in your lives, but for the coming lives and the coming days and years, which you will see, but we won't. That's your job. My job is to make it real, not to big you up as you are the future generation. God, spare me. It's get real time for the world. I hope you'll be an old man like me. I hope you'll get to stand on a stage after all the flags have been waved. I hope you'll get to feel proud of your country and what it did. I hope you get to feel proud of yourself. I'm not proud of myself or my generation. We gave you globalization. We gave you that great swirl, that great planetary swirl of capital, people, and ideas. And in the confusion of that, many couldn't understand it and were afraid of it, and struck back not with their brains, but with their crude, stupid weapons. Enough of that. We're going to talk for 3 days. And after those 3 days are over, we're all going to go back to our countries. And we're going to try, just try, to stop hurting each other.